All right, let's talk about something that, once you really think about it, kind of breaks your brain. It's a huge paradox at the heart of our global economy. If every single country on Earth is a debtor, who exactly is the creditor? And I'm not exaggerating. I mean every country. The big ones, the small ones, the ones you hear about on the news, the ones you don't. They all owe money. It doesn't matter what their politics are or how rich they are. The United States, Japan, all of Europe, they're all absolutely swimming in IOUs. It's just a fundamental fact of being a country in the 21st century. And here's where it starts to get really weird. You've got countries like China and Japan who are some of the biggest lenders in the world, right? Well, they're also massively in debt themselves. It's this bizarre circular logic that just doesn't seem to add up.
So, this brings us right back to the central mystery. You know, Debt 101 says you have a borrower and you have a lender. It's a two-way street. So if all the major nations are on the borrowing side of the street, who is on the other side collecting all the cash?
To figure this out, we actually have to rewind the clock. Because for most of human history, the idea of a country being permanently in debt was seen as a total disaster, a sign of epic failure. The whole game changed in 1694. That's when the Bank of England was created. Before then, if a king wanted to borrow money for, say, a war, it was all based on his personal promise. And, well, kings weren't always good for it. So lenders were, understandably, very hesitant. And this shift was a revolution. Instead of one person's promise, you suddenly had the full faith and credit of the state, an entire institution backed by laws and, crucially, the power to tax its citizens. All of a sudden, debt wasn't a weakness anymore. It became a powerful tool, a weapon even. You could fund massive armies, build global empires, and crush your rivals.
But this entire powerful new system was built on something you can't see or touch. A single, fragile idea. Trust. The belief that the government would actually pay you back. If that belief disappears, the whole system just vanishes into thin air. Okay, let's fast forward. How did we get from that idea to the giant, tangled up web of debt we have today? Well, once governments figured out they could borrow, they just kept finding new reasons to do it. Just look at this. Right after World War II, US debt was insane, over 100% of its entire economy. But what happened next? A massive economic boom. The economy grew so fast that the debt, as a percentage, actually shrank to about 35% by the 70s. This taught everyone a very powerful and maybe even a dangerous lesson. You don't have to pay back debt if you can just grow your way out of it. And in the decades after that, the whole system went global. Countries weren't just borrowing from their own people anymore. They started buying up each other's debt. Japan bought American bonds. China bought European bonds. It turned into one massive international marketplace. And then things got even more complicated. Central banks, like the Federal Reserve in the US, jumped into the game. They started buying up huge amounts of their own government's debt, not to turn a profit, but as a way to control the economy, to steer interest rates and keep things stable. And this chart, this gets us really close to the answer to our big question. Look at who actually owns US debt. Sure, there's a slice for foreign governments, but look at the rest. A huge chunk is held by the Federal Reserve itself. Another slice is held by the pension funds that manage our retirement. Social Security holds another piece. And then you've got regular banks and insurance companies. So in a very real way, a huge chunk of a country's debt is owed to itself. But remember that one invisible ingredient? Trust. This whole complicated machine works beautifully until it doesn't. And when that trust finally breaks, it doesn't just bend, it shatters.
And that's the truly terrifying thing about a national debt crisis. It's not a slow, gentle decline. It's a sudden, violent collapse. One day, everything's fine, the system works. The next day, it's completely frozen.
And we've seen this play out so many times. Greece, Argentina, Sri Lanka. For years, they were all borrowing money without a problem. And then, almost overnight, the mood changed. Investors got spooked, they ran for the exits, and the entire financial system of the country just imploded. And this isn't some rare, once-in-a-century event. Get this, since 1960, more than half of all the countries on the planet have defaulted on their debt at least one time. It's a surprisingly normal part of how this system works. And it always comes back to this one simple fact. These collapses don't happen because debt is somehow morally wrong.
They happen because the trust holding it all together is incredibly, incredibly fragile. So if it's this risky and countries aren't really paying the debt down, what is the actual endgame? What's the plan? Well, the unsettling answer is there isn't one. Not in the way you or I think about paying off a loan. This is the big secret. Governments almost never actually pay off the principal amount of their debt. When an old loan is due, they just take out a new loan to pay it off. They simply roll it over. The debt isn't meant to be paid off. It's meant to be permanent. So if the main loan never gets paid, what's the actual cost? It's the interest payments. Every single year, your tax dollars are collected to pay interest to the people and institutions who own the bonds. And who are they? They're the banks, the pension funds, the wealthy investors we saw earlier. It creates this quiet, continuous flow of money from the average taxpayer to those who already hold financial assets. And that brings us to the final, mind-bending conclusion. There is no secret cabal of global creditors. There isn't some shadowy figure in a volcano base holding the world's IOUs. The creditor is us. It's our retirement funds, our savings accounts, our own financial institutions, all woven together in one massive, self-referential loop. So let's just boil this all down. Takeaway number one, there is no single creditor. It's a web of promises we've all made to each other. Number two, the system is built on trust, not on the idea of actually repaying the principal. And number three, the goal for governments isn't to get rid of debt, it's just to manage it forever.
And this leaves us with one final, kind of chilling question. This whole system of rolling over debt works as long as there's always someone new willing to lend. But what happens in a truly global crisis when every single country is desperate to borrow and there's nobody left to lend? That is the ultimate weak spot in this incredible, fragile system.